Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network, and we are back discussing episode 5 of season 3 of the White Lotus. We have surpassed the mid-season mark. We're up on the back half, and boy, what an episode we have for you. Episode title, Full Moon Party. I'm going to be one of your hosts. My name is Darian Zach. I am joined this week by Zach Miller.
How we doing?
Lots to discuss, man. This episode was getting to that point that Liz and I were discussing last week where shit starts to hit the fan in the White Lotus.
Yeah.
And all of our characters, there's a lot revealed. There's a lot that kind of comes off of the ending of last week. And I don't know. I don't know. Did you produce our episode last week? I forget if you did or not.
I was not here.
So we were discussing how it was really interesting that White Lotus doesn't do this a lot, but episode 4 and episode 5 all take place within the same day. They don't do that a lot. They broke the whole episode up from the morning where you see the characters wake up, and then we go into the nighttime. And of course, in White Lotus, when it hits nighttime, it's like all the sin comes out. There's a lot of crazy shit that happens. We can dive into whoever you want to talk about first. So who would you like to focus on? We got the Ratliffs, we got the women, we got Belinda and Gary, we got
Saxon and Lockie. Maybe we could start with the women.
Okay.
Because I feel like the most happens for them on screen this episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's dive in. So we got Michelle Monaghan, we got Carrie, Coon, we got Leslie Bibb. They are on their fun excursion that they were asking for. Last week, they wanted to go do something fun. And so they get taken to this nightclub. They get taken to a night on the town with these three.
The Russians.
The Russians, the two Russian guys. And of course, what's the guy's name that works at the hotel?
It's the trainer.
It's the trainer.
I'll have to look it up.
A lot of alcohol infused fun, so to speak, that happens. And I want to talk first about Kate in particular, Leslie Bibb's character, the one that is kind of hesitant on what's happening. She's like, no, I think it's time for us to go home. And Laurie, Carrie Coon's character, and Jaclyn, Michelle Monaghan's character, they're the ones that are like, no, it's fine. Everything's fine. We're just having a fun time. We're getting really drunk with these young guys, and we're dancing all on them. And it becomes a whole thing in terms of seeing the different side that we haven't seen from these women so far this season.
Yeah.
And there is that moment where Jaclyn kind of looks over at the POV, and you're seeing these younger women kind of stare at her, and she is enjoying for the first time, she's enjoying the eyeballs on her in comparison to last week when she's getting recognized by these elderly people and she's like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. So what did you think about kind of the way that their storyline kind of went down, and maybe your perspective on Kate versus Laurie and Jaclyn and what that could mean for them going forward into next week's episode?
Yeah. It's really interesting with how Jackie has been kind of modeled since the beginning. Jackie has kind of always had this obsession with youth and narcissism just by her personality. She's the movie star, and she's kind of been at the forefront of the friend group and been the most successful amongst them. And she's projecting this really fake thing that you guys have alluded to the past few episodes as well. It's just, putting on this showy friendship where she wants them to get ahead on this trip, and she wants Laurie to get with guys or talk to people and live up to that hype of going on a trip. But really, she's kind of out for her own self-interest. I mean, even in the conversations, she's kind of focused on being better than them in each conversation with their health and the whole the health charts that they get back. I also looked up the trainer's name is Valentin.
Okay, yes.
So he's our main Russian of the group.
He works at the White Lotus.
Yes, yeah. So he basically, she's just trying to always one-up them. And it's subtly at first, and then now it's growing to this major thing where it's about to boil over. And we were all kind of expecting it to boil over. We just didn't know how it was going to happen. So they all kind of go out on the town or in the resort. They go to the club and that kind of thing, and they start to court the other Russian guys and Valentin's friends and that kind of thing. So he's trying to set them up with the rest of the girls. And, there was a couple of points that I was getting pretty worried for the girls because they were just getting more and more drunk. And as the guys were coming over, they were just kind of feeding them drinks. So I was really hoping that they weren't going to get like date raped or anything like that. Like I thought that would have been terrible, but because there was a pressure on, oh, drink this drink, and then Laurie took like a second drink from Kate. Yeah. So, and Kate has been more conservative, like she alludes to politically, and then also just like being more reserved. Like she doesn't want to party as much.
And the most insecure, probably, of the three characters.
Yeah, she's like, we've seen. Like closeted insecure because she's not like.
It comes out in those social situations, though.
Yeah, it's more judgmental than anything, and more like passive aggressive, I think. Because she's kind of like, oh, well, like, why wouldn't that be okay? Or, you know, like, what? Like, yeah, what's wrong with that? Like, she's not as, like, projecting the starry atmosphere as Jackie, but she's still, like, pretty judgmental and, like, acting like, oh, well, you know, I've settled down with a rich family. I have a comforting light. Like, why isn't that good enough? You should live up to, like, what I'm doing, too. So she's kind of judging the situation. It's like, all right, guys, like, we can slow down a little bit. Rightfully so at certain points, you know, because they do kind of go a little deep with people that they don't know in a country that they're not familiar with. So, but, you know, at the same time, I've wanted Laurie to get, you know, her bag this whole time. Laurie deserves it. She seems very nice and she deserves that chance with somebody. And then there's the whole undermining with Jack.
It gets all fucked up. So Laurie, after they decide to leave the club,
right,
and they go back to the hotel, isn't it? Yeah, and they're partying in the pool, and they're like, you know what, we need to go to bed. It's time to finally go to sleep, and we'll meet up back up. And they agree to meet up at the Muay Thai fight the next day because one of the guys is fighting in a Muay Thai fight, and Laurie whispers something to Valentine, like something insinuating, like, we don't know what it is. You can't even really make out anything she's saying, but insinuating that she's interested in him. She's coming on to him.
Yeah.
And then Jaclyn sends a text out, and then the next time we see Jaclyn at the end of the episode, she is about to have sex with Valentine, going behind Laurie's back, especially because she's the one that's encouraging her to make a move on Valentine, and she's like really pushing that. Right. Valentine says that Laurie's a sexy dancer. Like there's a lot involved with that potential love triangle now.
Yeah. And the whole pool scene, we got back-to-back episodes of Dong hanging out. Like we got the other guy coming in, flashing it, and then Laurie also was flashing stuff to them, which was crazy. So I assumed that Laurie was going to get with somebody.
She was at least had the intention of doing that.
Yes. Yeah. So it seemed like one of the guys was going to come on to her or vice versa, and that she was, you know, going to go home. Kate was also kind of like a little worried about the situation, and she was like ushering them out. And obviously Jackie was like, unlock the back door after a little time had passed and everyone fell asleep.
I think it's going to be crazy to see the aftermath of what this means for Jaclyn and Laurie, because Jaclyn has been the friend pushing, you know, you should totally go for this guy. Like this guy really wants you, like he's looking at you a certain way, he's calling you sexy, ooh, like she even makes it, ooh, she called you sexy, and then she's the one sleeping with him behind her back. Like shit's gonna go down.
Okay, so probably the best way to break up this episode too is, do you want to do like predictions per little storyline? Like
sure, we can.
Given what it just ended with them, with Jackie sleeping with the guy, do you think that Laurie is going to shut down and ignore her and kind of fall back into that, you know, I'm okay with being the
second fiddle?
Second fiddle, because I've been doing that my whole life? Or is something going to snap in her that might get like violent, like with the shooting that we were kind of predicting? Or maybe she just lashes out and tries to tell her husband, Jackie's husband. Laurie tells Jackie's husband. Like, do you think that something will really blow up next episode?
Well, so Liz and I were actually discussing last week about how we thought the three women were going to be the storyline this season, where it's like, you know how all these sectors in White Lotus, all these groupings of people all go through something, but there's always like a collection of, in the past two seasons, where it's like they just go back to the way their lives were. I think that this is the storyline with the most likelihood for that to happen. again, Mike White could completely flip it on its head. That's the way I see it going. I could still see her and Jaclyn getting into an argument. But I do think initially she might fall back into line. And then I think there could be a situation in which it could be a little violent. It could get catty. It could be something where they're screaming at one another. Based on what I'm seeing, I still have a feeling though, that at the end, it'll be a situation where Jaclyn's like, you guys are the best friends. They're like, we love you. Like, we love each other. Like, this is going to be great. And it's just the fake bullshit. That's what I could go based on this, but it does put a wrench in things, obviously, because Jaclyn was pushing for Laurie to do something, and now she's the one getting in the middle of it. Yeah. So what about you?
Yeah, I'm also curious if Laurie is going to find out that she slept with him immediately next episode, or if the guy's going to scurry out the back before she wakes up. And
that's a possibility.
Maybe finale, she finds out, and then something major blows up with a circumstance that they're in. And then
I think they're the only ones not connected with the shooting, by the way.
Okay.
I think they're the only ones that have no ill-fated things in terms of shooting, in terms of a death. I think they're going to go unscathed. And I said that last week too. Still at this moment, that's what I think.
Okay. I think the way that it's playing out, you're probably right about that. I find it it would have to be something circumstantial where Laurie is unbelievably pissed off, and then she just finds a gun on the ground, or but even that would be kind of
it would be silly. A little far-fetched for their characters.
Yeah, right. I don't think she's a murderous person, she's not that jealous where she would kill somebody over.
Yeah.
So, or unless it's a drunken thing, or somebody gets killed in a crossfire, maybe that's accidental. Yeah.
I was speculating that I think Guy Talk is going to die, that I think Mook is going to die in a crossfire.
Oh, that would suck.
That's what I think. That was my prediction as of last week, and I'm still kind of sticking with it. But let's hop over to Rick.
Oh, Rick.
Let's go to Rick. So Rick's in Bangkok. Walton Goggins, my personal MVP of this season thus far. And we get internet was ablaze after this episode because we get a very starry cameo from Sam Rockwell, Oscar winner, as his friend that he calls on to do him a favor when he meets him in Bangkok. I was saying to you before we started rolling, I don't think you said you knew this, but Sam Rockwell is the real life husband of the character Kate, Leslie Bibb. So I think that, again, the way that Mike White has talked about the way they shoot these is the whole crew and cast moves to this separate country or location for the extent of shooting, and they house them in the hotel, and that's kind of how it goes. So part of me thinks that Sam Rockwell was like, fuck it, I'll go for the ride, I'll go on vacation with you. And Mike White's like, we need this side character, we'd love to have you kind of play. And we get an insane scene that really, like I said, the whole internet was talking about it, and just the way that the scene played out and how well it was written and how interesting it was. And I know you said you have some theories on it, but essentially base level, right? We know that Rick is going to talk to his friend and he wants to just get a drink and catch up. And he asks, they sit down to get a drink, and he asks for chamomile tea, I think it is, right? And he's like, chamomile tea? Like, what's going on, man? I don't think I've ever hung out with you sober ever. He's like, I've been sober for 10 months. And he has this spirituality to him now. He said, I guess it must just be religion and kind of what I'm falling into. And he goes through a very interesting monologue of how he had all these sexual escapades with Asian women when he first got to Thailand. And that he goes, I went on this awakening, and I was trying to figure out why I was so emasculated by this feeling. Why did I want this constantly? And he goes, and then I took home a ladyboy, and I've done that previously. And instead of fucking the ladyboy, I let the ladyboy fuck me.
Yeah.
And the look on Rick's face is just like,
right.
What did I just hear? Did I hear that correctly? And then he continues to go down the rabbit hole, and he's like, and then he goes, I decided to look for someone that would want to fuck a ladyboy. And then it was a guy that looked just like me. And then I let him fuck me. And he's like, maybe the conclusion was that I wanted to be one of those Asian women. And Rick is kind of just flabbergasted by the whole interaction. And a lot of people, like I said, it could have a larger meaning to what this season is, what sex in the White Lotus means in general. So I wanted to get your you're feeling on that scene, because it's a crazy scene that kind of hits you like a truck because it comes out of nowhere.
It's heavy, yeah, especially because it's a brand new character, and we kind of assume that Rick is going to Bangkok, like he's said, to plot out this scheme against the hotel owner. And whether all of what he's saying is true or not, we kind of know that Sam Rockwell is probably involved. He's meeting him there. We assume that he's going to be like an ally, or, just a bagman and pass off something. So he passes off a gun to Rick, which is interesting. But yeah, the monologue, it could have been a very simple conversation, like, oh yeah, here's the gun. He's at room 237. Go kill him. Like, it could have been a very simple interaction with Sam Rockwell, but it wasn't. And trying to unpack a meaning behind everything. I was talking to my girlfriend about it, so I'm gonna credit her, and she asked me to credit her, and I will, because it was a great theory. But with a lot of the guests at the hotel, and even White Lotus in general, a lot of them are chasing to satisfy some need or addiction or finding themselves in a certain way. And Sam Rockwell gives us this extreme thing because he's talking about how he has been with plenty of women and it wasn't satisfying him anymore. So he went after this different experience, and that was something that was like fulfilling and mysterious and not something that he necessarily thought of before. And he tried it, and he even mentions, like, his quote is getting sober is easy, giving up pussy is hard, which is like, okay, this man is a sex addict and he's had other experiences now. So what Faith and I were talking about was there are these out of body experiences that a lot of the guests are chasing. Jaclyn is obsessed with youth and narcissism. She's trying to consistently one up people and satisfy that. Mm-hmm. Piper is seeking spirituality and religion, and she's trying to blend in with Thailand, bring on this Buddhist lifestyle. The mother is kind of loosely involved with drugs and trying to satisfy this, like, whatever buzz is going on inside of her. Yeah. And then Rick is trying to satisfy his trauma. He's incredibly rebellious. He's trying to he probably believes that this revenge plot will put everything to peace for him. And I think that his desire is to either kill somebody or to finally get revenge, and that will put the voices to bed and that kind of thing, alluding to those conversations in therapy. Even greed with Jason Isaacs and Saxon. They're trying to be these crazy wealthy debutantes and, like, just Saxon mostly getting girls and satisfying, like, greed and money is everything and power and all that kind of thing. Jason Isaacs got too greedy, and now he's in the situation that he's in with the financial scheme. Mm-hmm. So I think there's, like, these out of body things that people are trying to attain themselves that they believe will satisfy their inner demons in a way. But it's also like they're trying to use sin to satisfy their peace, in a way. Like they're just too greedy in that sense, that they're using these crazy totems throughout their life to pursue something so deep and
profound.
Yeah. And just, like, there's a hole in each of them that they cannot, like, feed.
Yeah. It's like getting through that desire of constantly trying to get to this one thing, and your whole life is defined by this one thing, like you're referring to. Right. Like with Jason Isaacs' character, it's just that he always wants his family to be taken care of, and he doesn't want to have to worry about not having something, whether it's his phone, obviously that's the most apparent one, but then money, the protection, all that stuff. With the conversation between Rick and Frank, which is Sam Rockwell's character, I think so much of it is, like you talked about, with Rick going through his experience in therapy, seeing that he doesn't need this to fulfill himself. You know what I mean? Like, it's something where he doesn't need to go through the act in which he has to kill this person. I speculated with Liz last week that I don't think he is going to kill him. I think there is going to be something that speaks to him in a different way. And what he's going to need is that that relationship with Amy Lou Wood's character with Chelsea. And we see in the 4 people that are, we'll get to them, obviously Saxon, Lachlan, Chelsea, and Chloe. Chelsea's the only one that doesn't kiss anybody in that scene. So I think it's interesting to see that we're not showing her infidelity either, and she still is committed to Rick, and she plays it up throughout the rest of the episode. She does say fuck it at one point because she's trying to be there for him, and he's not answering or whatever. But I think that's going to be his turning point. I think it's going to be a moment where he could be the ultimate executioner of the person that killed his father, or so-called killed his father, and he decides not to pull the trigger, and he decides to be the bigger man and follow through with what his real desire deep down is, to feel understood and feel like a release of all of his past and what that means to his character in the present. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Like really well put too. And I think that another thing I was going to say too is there's very like incorruptible characters so far too. There's Lockie, Chelsea, and Belinda that are pretty like content with where they're at in life. Like Lockie is, he's falling into stuff with Saxon, but not necessarily by his own doing. He's just trying to be a brother with him and enjoy himself. Chelsea is
there is something there though that we
so we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But I think that these 3 characters are victims of their circumstances in that way. They're becoming corrupted by their surroundings. Like Chelsea is the one that's trying to bring empathy to Rick, and Rick is not letting her in, and she's trying to sympathize with him and be like, look, I'm here for you. How can I help out? Like she's content with where she's at in life, but she wants to help him.
She has that her desire. I would say. I mean, you see it even in the scene where she says to Chloe, she goes, "He's like my child." Yeah, and it's like that's a different sort of relationship than you would want. You want a partnership, not that you feel like you're taking care of someone. And she's like, he's 50. Like it shouldn't be feeling like it's your child. With Lachlan, we'll get to that. There's a lot there to unpack. With Belinda, I think part of it could be that she can't let go of her past. Like she can't, she's in this, think about it. She's in this formative experience. She gets to finally go away after working in Hawaii forever and getting a new experience and learn these things. And she even has like a romantic awakening with Porn Shy, but it's the thing that she can't let go of, what was her dream potentially becoming a reality with Tanya. Right. If she never goes up to Gary Gregg, then she doesn't have to deal with this. You know what I mean? Like what she's doing, like if she could let go of that, if she can get rid of that desire and fulfillment of just being like, it is time to reallocate myself into this present instead of focusing so much on what I could have had. And now Tanya's dead. And it's like, oh, but I need to get to the bottom of this. Like we really need to get Gary. Like he's a dangerous person. It's like Gary Gregg probably wouldn't have even focused on her if she never went up to him. You know what I mean? So I think that's Mike White's theme. Like that's the big thesis for this season in general. Like
there are sinners and there are saints.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Like I think that another, like Belinda too, like she didn't ask for Greg or Gary to come back. You know, like she's just trying to find some peace herself and time away from everything and recoup what has happened. And now she's discovering all these terrible things. Chelsea is also kind of, she just wanted to be here with Rick, enjoy herself, and now she's been exposed to all this like sin and crazy stuff.
Got bit by a snake, dude.
Bit by a snake, and there's that little arc with her that I think will be a little bit more explained by the end of the season. But yeah, I think it's very interesting how they play with like these, adultery and greed and like all these like kind of like biblical sense of sins, but also expanding on them and how they're sensationalized. And like it's literally like we were talking about it, I think on the first episode. It's like it's a bubble where people can just impulsively do whatever they want. Yeah. And people acting irrationally is such entertaining television. And it's just like these are things that hopefully none of us would ever do, but it's like crazy to watch somebody make like horrible decisions and then it leads to demises.
Well, it's also the human experience, right? It's like you were talking about, you're like, it's like scripted reality TV. Like, and reality TV is scripted to an extent, but it's more like we're playing into these tropes. I think I don't know if you were on the episode where Liz and I talked about it, but like the whole Ratliff family is inspired by the family from a reality show called Southern Charm. Like, they were inspired, like that whole storyline, or not storyline, but the characters themselves were like, Mike White was like, yeah, he's a fan of the reality show, so he wanted to base characters based in that ideology.
Right.
And I think it's really interesting to see the human element of it, that these are people that are, like you said, choosing to go to this location to act out. And every time you go to a White Lotus, you know that shit is going to go haywire and things are going to go sideways. And it's ultimately going to lead to death a lot of the time, or every time, so to speak.
So just circling back to with Rick's storyline, do you think that he's going to confront the hotel owner next episode? Do you think that he or he's going to get one step closer? Like, what do you think is going to happen with him closer to the end?
Yeah, so we have 3 episodes left of this season. So I think that the next episode is going to deal with his interaction with him. I don't, again, my theory, my prediction is that he's not going to kill him. And I think he's going to go through this experience. And episode 7, I think he'll get back to the hotel and she's not going to be there, Chelsea. And then I think it's going to have to be that I think he's going to be involved in the shooting in some way, shape, or form. I just don't know in what sense he's going to be involved. What about you?
Yeah, I think he's gonna start to pull back himself, and I think he's like, even though he's in Bangkok and he's had that interaction with Sam Rockwell, I think there's going to be a couple points where he just can't go through with it. Sam Rockwell is also alluding to that whole like role. He goes, "Oh, let me know if you need any role play or something." Like, so I'm assuming. I think the red herring and the giving us a false lead on it was having that he was talking about the sexual experience. I don't think Mike White is trying to tell us that they're going to have a sexual encounter. I think it's just a role in his scheme with the revenge plot, especially because he gave him a gun. So I'm assuming he is also in the same caliber of like a hitman or just another able-bodied soldier for Rick. You know, so
he's going to be the deflection
in
his plan for him to finally get to the owner, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. So I think that Rick is going to have this experience. He's going to seize up and like have a conscience at the last minute or something. And he's going to be like, I can't go through with this. Chelsea wouldn't want me to do that. Maybe there will be a phone call where something happened with Chelsea and he gets called back to the White Lotus.
That there's potential for that too. That could happen.
Yeah. You want to move on to Chelsea and the boys?
Let's go. Well, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go to that craziness. Sean is our producer on this episode, and he's probably just wondering like what an insane show this is. And when we get to the next storyline, his head's about to blow off his shoulders. We have the foursome of Chloe, Chelsea, and then the brothers Lachlan and Saxon. And in the premiere of this season, there is a very weird encounter where Lachlan and Saxon are sleeping in the same bedroom. And Saxon makes the weird sexual comment of like, how am I going to jerk off if you're in the room? And then as he walks to the bathroom, Lachlan is kind of like admiring his brother from afar, fully naked. Now we get this point where Lachlan, who is a senior in high school, graduating and deciding where he wants to go to college. You got the Duke side and you got the North Carolina side between the families, or between the family, I should say. And we have this drug-infused craziness. They go to like an electric carnival sort of on an island, and Chloe has these drugs that she gives out, and initially Saxon's like, we don't do drugs, I am a drug, like just playing up his ego and his dickhead sort of mentality, played perfectly by Patrick Schwarzenegger this season. He is like the most hated person on television. And he tells Lachlan, he goes like, listen, like take it easy, like we want to get these girls trashed, like we want to be okay so we can get laid. And instead Lachlan decides to just take the candy, and I think it's ecstasy, and they all start tripping, and Saxon decides to do it as well. And we have Chloe hooks up with Lachlan, and then she goes, you two should kiss. And you don't actually hear her say that. There's music overplaying it. It's kind of a disorienting sort of edit that they're showing.
It's like spin the bottle, but like not with no bottle.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of like messing around, and then it gets to that. Like Chelsea and Chloe, right?
Yes, I think it's Chloe. I'm double checking because I've been saying Chloe the whole time.
Two of them have a brief kiss each other.
Chloe.
And then the boys are like, oh my God. And then you're assuming that
she even says that she goes like she mouths because we can't hear what she's saying, but she's like just a peck, like just kiss your brother, and so Lachlan kisses Saxon, and Saxon's so high that he's like disoriented, not even understanding what's happening, and then like they're like no, like egging him on, and it's partially like a joke you think, but they're also insanely high, so who knows, and then Lachlan decides to like really kiss his brother. And it's what we've been speculating, like it's an incestual storyline between brothers, which is crazy to see. That's HBO for you, folks.
HBO. I got this stuff lined up.
What an insane thing to now see play out. The internet, another thing on the internet was just being like, I can't believe I'm watching what I'm watching, and Mike White just keeps kind of amping up the absurdity of what is capable of happening within the White Lotus.
Yeah.
So what did you think about that interaction and where that's going to go? Do you think it was an intentional thing? Like, do you think it was something to kind of build off of that and what that means? Is Saxon going to be thinking about it more because he's so disoriented, or do you think it was more of just a drug fueled kind of one-off thing to play with the audience?
Isn't there a saying that like drunk actions are sober thoughts?
Yes, yeah.
So I think that's kind of what it is, because there's been a lot of setup to that, and it was kind of alluded to that there was some form of incest in the beginning. Like we didn't know about Piper at first, like because Saxon was being playful with her too, in the very very beginning. Now that we've gotten to this point, we know that there is some kind of relationship, weird thing with Lachlan, and just like this dynamic where Lachlan is trying to live up to be his brother, and Saxon is also just like got this weird hazing mentality of like getting him super drunk and like living up to this standard, kind of the same way that he feels
the Ratliff standard,
standard, the bar, like you're trying to live up to his dad's standard, that kind of thing, the greed, the wealth, the money. Very crazy stuff. And there was also, when they get drunk and high the first time and they're in town, they were watching the fireworks. I thought something before that was going to happen where he was like laying back, like Lachlan was laying back. I thought that he was going to like overdose or like have a seizure or something, because he was mixing like hard alcohol, ecstasy, and they don't know what it is. But then it gets to the boat and they are going to town, having everything possible. So yeah, I think that Lachlan has definitely like desired his brother, and Saxon's like, he's gonna like get defensive and like try and suppress that like for his own ego, but I think that he's also desired him in a way. Also, if he's too comfortable to like be completely nude in the beginning around him and just like doing these blanket, like I'm making a cover statement like, oh, dude, what are you gonna do, man? How am I supposed to jerk off your ear, man? Like come on. Like you're posing a little bit, like it was a good like projection. So yeah, but okay. So next episode, do you think? Okay, two questions. Do you think Chelsea slept with either of them, and do you think that Lachlan and Saxon will wake up together? Maybe.
I don't think either of those things are going to happen. So I don't think Chelsea's going to sleep with anybody. I think there's going to be a realization from both of them in the morning of what happened. I think Lachlan's going to sleep with Chloe. I do think that's going to happen. She intended for that. She wanted that. And I still think that's going to happen, but I think there's going to be the repercussion of what came before that. Like, I still think Chelsea is of that mentality where she's like, I don't want anything to do with this guy. There's still that part of her that's that purity with her. And that could maybe lead to her death, which I know Liz has speculated. She's like, I think there's a chance Chelsea might die. Yeah. So there's definitely the chance for that. But in terms of the aftermath of what's going to happen, I think that Chelsea's not going to sleep with any of them, either Saxon, Lachlan, or Chloe. And I think Chloe and Lachlan are going to have a sexual. Maybe Chloe wakes up in a bed with both of them, both Lachlan and Saxon, which could also be an interesting wrinkle in all of that.
I would be very surprised if Chelsea went through with sleeping with him. Like, I know that she's definitely upset at Rick, but she was talking the entire episode like, I can't do this with, to Rick. I can't do this. And I know that he wasn't answering her, and he was not right in blowing her off in that kind of way. But to me, she seems like pretty incorruptible, like as opposed to the other characters, where it would surprise me if she did go through with it. Also, Chloe was alluding to the fact on the yacht that, oh no, yeah, Greg is definitely the type of guy, he would get mad. He could definitely kill me, that kind of thing. And Chelsea's like, what the fuck do you mean by that? Like, what the hell is that? And then she's like, yeah, I don't know where he came from, like something like that.
Yeah.
So I think Chloe could be a major target next episode or the episode after that for Greg. Gary.
I don't know what we're gonna see with Greg Gary. I mean, he's not in this episode at all, right? He just
No.
We just get the reference with the manager, Franklin, I think his name, Fabian.
Yeah,
Fabian with the scene with him and Belinda.
He's looking
Kind
for
of just
her.
looking
Into
like
her.
she was. There's a guest that's very interested in you.
Oh yeah, we want to talk about that briefly?
Yeah, we can jump.
Which
we can
I
jump
thought
into
was
that.
crazy.
Yeah. So there's Fabian talking about how there's a guest interested, and Belinda kind of is like, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Like, this is somebody that killed his wife, and his wife was gonna fund my business before they got married, and then I met them in Hawaii, and they were married in Italy, and then she was murdered, and there's a lot of debts on a boat, and now he's here, and I think he's evading the police, and I think we need to call the police. I don't care if you call the Italian police, should we call the American police, the Thailand police, like anybody, like we should call all of them. And Fabian is so concerned with the image of the hotel and what that means, and intermingling, we could talk about this storyline with the Guy Talk gun incident, in which there was already a robbery earlier on in the season, and now Guy Talk, because he decides to walk Mook to her performance, Tim Ratliff takes the opportunity to steal the gun from the security office, and the episode opens with Guy Talk kind of trying to retcon his actions and go back, and he sees that he takes the gun and does confront him. He goes, I think you have something that belongs to me, or it's something along the lines of that, and Tim goes, I don't know what you're talking about, and he just walks out.
Yeah. I was also like, Guy Talk, man. Like,
Guy Talk is
taking L's, dude.
He's having a rough season. He's having a rough season.
Come on, man. Like, that was it. You corner him in the bathroom. You say, "Give me the gun. I know what you did."
He's a non-confrontational character,
and he's a security guard. Like, terrible.
I know.
Career path
I know.
For that guy.
He really shouldn't be in that line of work. But yeah, the whole scene with Belinda and Fabian.
Yes.
Fabian's like, I think we should stop gossiping about other guests at the hotel.
Right. I thought that was very interesting that he's willing to preserve the reputation of the White Lotus just so he can,
for the betterment of himself, I think.
Himself, and it's true, because
the
he's
reputation,
trying to get the status.
Yes.
And also, he doesn't want to scare the guests. They already had the incident with the robbers. So if he says another thing, he's gonna look like from the owners, like, how could you let this happen? You're the manager, like that kind of. So he's probably protecting himself. He's protecting the chain. Sure, very reasonable, I guess, until there's a murdering psychopath involved on the resort. Like, that's kind of, but that's another thing of what makes this great TV is now Belinda has tried that route. She's kind of on her own.
She's cornered. There's nothing she can do at
She's
this
told
point.
Porn Chai, which I think he will be good. I think he's going to be some kind of defense mechanism for her. Maybe he'll like ambush Gary or Greg if he comes to the room a little bit.
Maybe Porn Chai saves the day.
That would be sick. Or I hope that he doesn't die too, because he's been a sweetheart.
Dude, how many people are gonna die in this?
It's always the good ones, though. Like, they're the ones that were not doing anything wrong in the beginning. Like, they're just accidentally killed. Or
put in a terrible situation. Like, I think about like Haley Lou
Yeah.
Richardson's character from like season 2, when she thinks she's got a nice guy, and then she finds out that he's fucking his uncle, or what, like, and it's like, what the hell is going on? Like, there's just so much craziness that happens within this show.
Yeah.
The Ratliffs, though, is my favorite of this week, because Parker Posey as Victoria Ratliff is probably in contention with Rick for show MVP. The humor in this season and her character, man, like the fact that
you don't want to live in Taiwan.
You're gonna go and live in Taiwan. She's like, what? We're in Thailand. Like, what do you mean? Like, what is happening? She goes, you can't be a Buddhist. You're not Chinese. Like, it's just like, it's so crazy the way she interacts with her. But Piper obviously finally kind of lets all of it out, and you see that inner thing with Tim where he talks about how he used to be an altar boy and how he really is giving himself up to God at this point. He writes a suicide note, and he's about to pull the trigger, which is crazy. He's just going to do it while his wife is asleep, and he decides not to do it when she comes out of the bedroom. He kind of gets freaked out and he decides not to do it. And then the episode ends with him praying to God, saying, please help me. So I'm curious your thoughts on the three of them, what comes next for Tim especially. And Liz has been speculating all season. She thinks Victoria's like, shit's gonna hit the fan. That hasn't really happened yet with her. She does have that moment at the table, but it's kind of mild mannered. It's more humor filled than something that's like rage infused. You know what I mean? So what are your thoughts?
That's a tough one too. Yeah, Tim, I'm a little like, he's kind of had the same experience for the most part up until this point, like except that coming to God moment. Like I think the religion is now this final form, like last resort, where he is like looking for an answer. Is he gonna get that necessarily? I don't know. But it's interesting that he's turning to God in this moment, because he's kind of never given us an inkling of his full like evangelical upbringing and stuff in the South until that moment. I think he's like, with that whole little speech about the altar boy thing, he kind of is reflecting on like times used to be a lot simpler and that kind of thing, and he's put himself in this position. And then there was also something like Victoria was like, you're the most successful man ever, you have everything, and he's like, yeah, I guess I do. And I think he was kind of reflecting like, why did I do this to risk losing it all?
Yeah, 100%.
And his gamble. And he obviously is not going to get out of this situation unscathed. So he's having that reflection. And then now he's on the other side of the world, being cut off from the whole money scheme. So that's very difficult for him to wrap his head around. He cares a lot about his reputation, and I don't think it's like a commendable thing that he's like, trying to protect his family necessarily. I think he's more just like, I built this reputation my entire life and it's about to go away in the blink of an eye when we go back to the States. And I don't know how to deal with that, so I might kill myself. And that's kind of what it led him to. The stress is getting to him too much where it leads him to that point. And it's interesting. I don't know if he's actually going to kill himself. I feel like if he was going to do it, it would have been there.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think they're going to revisit that.
I've flipped on that because I was saying a couple weeks ago I thought it was totally going to happen, and now after this episode I'm like, nah, it's not going to happen at all. I do think there could be a moment of sacrifice for him, maybe not intentional, but I could see him being another casualty in the shootout. There's a lot of gunshots in the premiere. We know that there's a lot to kind of come in terms of there's going to be at least, maybe not a lot of casualties, we don't know that yet, but there's going to be at least a good amount of people being shot at of our principal cast. So I am curious to see what would happen with that and who's going to be responsible. And I think that Tim is embroiled in a lot of it. I still think Victoria, we still kind of got to see what happens. Piper is not like, Piper just really hasn't had much of a story this season, I think, other than her just wanting to fulfill the desire. But that could be, she could be the main catalyst in that theming, like the most basic version of the theme of the season being chasing your inner desire, and her desires to be a Buddhist and to be different than what her family sort of represents.
Yeah, she's trying to be that outlier. She's not interested in anything sexually. She's trying to depart from Christianity and stuff, and then she is like the only one having a peaceful time in Thailand. She's actually okay with living without cell phones in the beginning and that kind of. So it's very clear that she's different from the rest of them, and but I don't know where her path goes necessarily. I think if the shooting goes down, she probably won't move to Thailand. Like I think she's gonna go home with them at the end of the day, but her involvement in the shooting is still unclear to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Do you have, before we wrap it up, Liz has been asking me, we've been doing it at the end of the episode every week. Do you have a new theory, same theory on who you think is the body floating that Zion finds? I'm sticking with Mook. I still think it's going to be something where it's like a deflection that kind of hits her while Guy Tak is trying to defend the hotel and defend her. I think that's the body that Zion sees. There could be multiple, but we know that there's one body that's floating in particular. So do you have a theory or a prediction on who that body might be? through 5 weeks.
It's tough. It's tough because there's a lot.
You can switch. You're entitled to switch. We've switched.
I probably have switched before, because I think I was a front runner for the girls, like
One of the girls, yeah,
one
yeah.
of them. But now I think I'm sticking with like Chelsea or Chloe. Maybe Chloe gets killed in a rage by Gary.
Okay.
But I don't know. Also, maybe that scene in the premiere with the shooting wasn't the finale. Could be.
That'd be very.
That would be
different
crazy.
than
And
what
then
they
there's
do.
like an epilogue.
Yeah.
By the end episode.
That'd be interesting because they usually only do like the epilogue for like the last like 10 minutes. Everybody kind of going back to the airport or whatever, and they kind of assess the damage and the repercussions of what came before it. But that would be interesting if they kind of flipped it on its head a little bit.
Maybe
We'll have to see what happens. But let us know in the comments, what are your guys' thoughts on this episode? Give this video a like if you guys can. Comment your thoughts. Who do you think the dead body is? What was your favorite storyline from the week? Where do you think we go from here with 3 episodes left in the season? And we'll be back to talk about it next week. I'm not sure if Zach will be here next week, but I know we're going to try to get me, Zach, and Liz on for the finale if we can. You guys can also check out some of our other content. We're covering a lot of stuff right now. We're covering Severance. We got the finale upcoming for that. Vinny and I are covering Daredevil Born Again right now. We have reviews upcoming for movies like Black Bag and Opus and Snow White and The Electric State. So keep a lookout for all that stuff. You guys can also check out, we just did our finale review of Invincible Season 3 with Sean, Vinny, and Mikey. So you guys can take a look on that. And if you want to check out our stuff on socials, all that stuff is below me in the video. It's also in our YouTube description. We're on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Threads, Facebook, everywhere you guys can find your content. You guys can find us there. So let us know what you guys think. Just signing off, I'm Darian Scalamoni.
I'm Zach Miller.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.